Hey, I'm Tron, and welcome to Word, the daily Bible chapter discovery. This is Genesis chapter 46, and in 34 verses the Lord tells Israel it's okay to go to Egypt, and he heads out with all of his family. All of the members of the household is listed, and Jacob gets to see Joseph, and Joseph tells his brothers how to present themselves to Pharaoh. It is in the start of Jacob's trip, as he stops at Beersheba to worship the Lord, that he reaches out to the patriarch in verse 3. I am God, the God of your father, the voice said. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make your family into a great nation. It seems to me that God often speaks to the patriarchs when they are on the move. It makes sense to me because it is in times of transition I have been the most vulnerable and in need of God's presence. It is in motion he can give me direction for where I need to go. But it is also easy to lose track of his voice if I don't slow down along the way to seek him. God tells Israel he will be with him in verse 4. I will go with you down to Egypt, and I will bring you back again. You will die in Egypt, but Joseph will be with you to close your eyes. 66 descendants of Israel, not counting wives, come with him from the journey from Canaan to Egypt. His family has multiplied in verse 27. In addition, Joseph had 2 sons who were born in Egypt. So altogether, there were 70 members of Jacob's family in the land of Egypt. But wait, there's math. 66 plus 1 plus 2 equals 70? Without Jacob, it would be 69, but adding him in would be 70 again, since he is a male member of his own family. Why the wives are not included in the count? I don't know. It could be only the eventual heads of household counted as the wives joined his family in marriage. Some translations of the Bible, including the earliest comprehensive Greek translation, the Septuagint, that was the first 5 books of the Old Testament, known as the Torah or Pentateuch, have a different number here. In the sense of Joseph, who were born to him in the land of Egypt, were 9 souls. All the souls of the house of Jacob who came with Joseph into Egypt were 75 souls. Even in Exodus chapter 1 verse 5, there is differences in translations. The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all. Joseph was already in Egypt, but Joseph was in Egypt, and all the souls born of Jacob were 75. And even in the New Testament, Stephen, testifying before the Sanhedrin, is quoted as saying this, and this across translations. Then Joseph sent for his father Jacob and all his relatives, 75 in all. Which of these numbers are correct? 70 or 75? Someone suggested that maybe Jacob's surviving wives were added on the count, or perhaps some yet to be born in Egypt were added to the count for reference. Maybe. But keep in mind, Leah most likely was already dead. She was buried by Jacob himself, which could not make the number 75. I think it is very likely the Septuagint and translations derived from it used a number of people that correspond to the eventual tribes, clans, and larger family structures within the budding nation of Israel. Also, I think the Septuagint is useful as a reference, but it does not necessarily hold a larger authority just because it is an older translation. I think Stephen is quoting from it, and it shows the authenticity of what Stephen has spoken, not by consequence a reflection of historical facts of the Exodus. Even the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus has the extended family number at 70. So it is ultimately more a matter of historical accuracy, not a numbers game. The same goes for Joseph's 2 sons versus 9. He might very well have had more kids and grandchildren that later came under the umbrella of Manasseh and Ephraim, but having them count at the time of Jacob's migration is not likely, as these 2 kids would still have been very young. Anyway, coming back to the narrative, Joseph finally meets his dad in Goshen and embraces him for a while. In verse 30, Israel is overwhelmed with emotion. Finally, Jacob said to Joseph, Now I am ready to die, since I have seen your face again and know you are still alive. That is just like exaggeration, as he will live another 17 years before being on his deathbed. It is an expression of ecstatic joy. Then Israel is instructed by Joseph on Egyptian royal etiquette, and they are slated to meet Joseph's employer, the Pharaoh. He will affirm the placement of settlement for Jacob's large family, and Israel will bless him in return. But that will be tomorrow in Genesis 47. Until then, Word.